U.S. electricity generated by nuclear plants. Many advocates are defending the industry's safety record. The number 3 Republican in the Senate, Senator Lamar Alexander, is warning against panic driving decisions here in the United States. And he joins me now. Tennessee has got 3 nuclear power plants, I believe. Is that right, Senator? Currently in use?
That's right.
Go ahead.
No, well, Tennessee Valley Authority has 6 and is building a new one.
I want to go to something. I want to play a clip of what Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said to Andrea Mitchell about nuclear power and the future of it in the United States, and then get you to respond to it. Take a listen.
I have concerns about a lot of our energy issues. We need an energy policy. That's something President Obama has said repeatedly, and we need it to be yesterday, and it's got to be comprehensive. I think what's happening in Japan raises questions about the costs and the risks associated with nuclear power, but we have to answer those.
Now, Senator, I understand your position about saying, you know, you can't make legislation in the midst of a crisis where people are in a panic mode. But what you're seeing in Japan and how you're seeing of what happens when there's a catastrophic failure at a nuclear power plant, any doubts in your mind or any questions that you have saying, you know what, if we're going to pursue nuclear power, we got to be very careful on this part of it now, or maybe we didn't do this right. Any doubts in your minds?
Well, there are certainly questions, and we need to look at those. No doubts in my mind. I mean, I'm absolutely convinced. I mean, I can't imagine a future for the United States with enough clean electricity to run the country. We use about 25% of all the electricity in the world without nuclear power. What we're not seeing right now is coal plants, for example, produce a lot of pollutants that cause thousands of deaths every year. That's what the American Lung Association tells you. Nuclear power plants in the United States have never produced a death at a commercial reactor, and neither have our nuclear Navy ships. And in fact, our most celebrated accident, 3 Mile Island, no one was hurt at 3 Mile Island.
When you look at, you know, we're all becoming familiar now with how some of these reactors work, and in a very layperson's way. You probably know a lot more because of the nuclear plants in Tennessee and how important the nuclear industry is in Tennessee. But, you know, we still don't have a place where we store these spent rods. You know, there's a lot of political controversy about that. They've tried to have a Yucca Mountain for years, and obviously Nevada doesn't want it. And this is now what is at risk in Japan, right, is this storage facility of this spent nuclear waste, essentially. And that's the greatest risk now. If politically, do you really think we can get to a point where there'll be a place to safely put this nuclear waste to make these plants safer? Because right now it seems as if the plants are less safe because they have to store the waste on site.
I don't agree with that. I mean, all the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, all of our scientists believe that we can store these spent rods safely on site for the next 60 or 80 years. I mean, France is 80% nuclear. It stores all of its used nuclear fuel in an area the size of 2 basketball fields that's 30 feet deep. All you need is to keep it cool. The problem in Japan is that because of this huge earthquake and then the tsunami, it messed up the cooling apparatus. The cooling apparatus didn't work, not the reactor.
Would you believe that some of these nuclear plants, the ones that were built, say, in the same generation that this Japanese plant, the Fukushima plant, was built, that maybe we ought to consider shutting those down, or at least figuring out how to quickly modernizing them?
I'm not ready to say that, Chuck. We are already getting ready to have a new generation of nuclear power plants. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission is looking at 7 new designs for 20 applications. We haven't built a new plant in 30 years in the United States from scratch. So all the new plants in the United States will incorporate all of the possible safety features. We're even moving toward a reprocessing way, a way to take used nuclear fuel and just use it over and over and over again so it's not separated.
I want to ask you a quick question on Libya. Senator Richard Lugar, who's the top Republican on foreign relations, believes any military, anything that the president wants to do militarily, that he needs to go to Congress and ask for some sort of resolution. He said, and actually, they need a war resolution. Senator Chuck Schumer, the number 3 Democrat in the Senate, believes You don't need that Congress doesn't have to have any say if the United Nations decides to back some sort of no-fly zone and authorizes sort of a by any means necessary clause in the resolution. What say you?
Well, that's a historic debate, the extent to which the president has to come ask us what to do. I think if we don't have a resolution, the president at least needs to consult with Congress about anything that might be considered an act of war in Libya.
So you would like to see a resolution, or I mean, when you say consult,
well, sometimes
that means a resolution, no?
No, not necessarily. I mean, throughout our history, we've had different stages of that. One is to have a big debate, as we did in Vietnam, and vote on it. Another way to do it is for the president to show respect to the Congress and come up, say, these are the things I've got to do. I've got to do them quickly, but I want to consult with you and get your advice before you do it. I think so that's what the president needs to do. And
advice in this case means passing some sort of resolution. I know John McCain, Joe Lieberman have some.
Not necessarily passing anything. It just means sitting down and meeting with Congress, meeting with senior people like Senator McCain and others, getting their advice, and then going ahead. There's a variety of stages. We have to move quickly in Libya if we're going to move at all, because things are moving fast there.
All right, on a little bit of a lighter note, you and Donald Trump seem to have a little bit of a war of words. You, I think, correctly identified him as somebody who is famous for being famous. He didn't take too kindly to that. He's still apparently a potential Republican presidential candidate. Does it trouble you that Donald Trump is trying to suck all this oxygen out of the Republican Party right now?
The only thing that troubles me is I think I've ruined my chance to be his vice presidential nominee.
In all seriousness, you don't think this is bad for the party if he's out there doing all these things?
Chuck, I've had enough to say about him. All I can say is I'm an expert on what it takes to lose a presidential race. I've tried twice, didn't make it. I'm focusing on being a senator.
Senator Lamar Alexander, the #3 Republican in the Senate. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Chuck.
All right, up next, we're just minutes away from the opening bell on Wall Street. Rattled by the nuclear crisis, the markets had their worst day since August. Will they bounce back today? We're going to preview the opening bell, and many Americans are looking for ways to help those affected.